Salute booktube. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. I'm doing in this video my August reading wrap up, and I'm filming this on the 7th of September. So August is already a week ago. I'm a bit delayed, and there's good reason for that. I had visitors visiting me towards the end of August, and that kind of slowed down my reading, slowed down my video making, slowed down my booktube watching. For those who don't know, I'm based in the heart of the Middle East in the United Arab Emirates, and the summertime is a very quiet time. This part of the Middle East gets a lot of tourists in the winter time. In the summer, it's really hot and really dead. I guess it's the opposite of maybe some summer resorts in the Western world. It's the peak is the summer season, and then in the winter they become ghost towns. It's sort of reversed here. The summer, it's not a ghost town, but it doesn't really attract too many tourists because of the heat, oppressive heat. And then in the winter, you get millions and millions of tourists, mostly sun-seeking, sun-deprived Europeans coming to the beaches and the sunshine here in the Emirates. And then, of course, also you have at this time, as the weather improves, you have an influx and just an invasion of social media influencers. They just descend here like ravenous wolves. So God help us all from them. So they're starting to come back, and it's picking up a bit as we get into autumn and then the winter. So I also had guests who were coming, and that kind of delayed me, but I think better late than never. So I thought I would make the my wrap-up video today. I actually already filmed my TBR, what I'll be reading for September. I'll post that as well, although I filmed it a good couple of days ago, maybe a week ago now, but I didn't want to release the TBR video before I do a wrap-up video. I'm a bit OCD like that, so I'll probably post this video, this wrap-up video, and then my September TBR I'll also post, and you can watch both of them if you're so inclined. So with that, I'll start with the books I read. We'll do this, I tried to make it in some kind of order. Let's just see. The first book I read knocked down two events for August, or for the summer. One was Big Book Summer, where you had to read a book that's more than 400 pages. And this one was a whopping page page count, and it's a big book reflecting the subject matter. But I also read it for Summer of Sport. Last month I had read the biography of Muhammad Ali, the boxer. Boxing being the sport. For this, for August, the sport was bodybuilding, as you can see over there. The subject matter is Arnold Schwarzenegger, the autobiography. It's called Total Recall. My Unbelievably True Life Story is the subtitle. So yeah, a big book by a big man, big size-wise man. Of course, it is the autobiography. It's the approved autobiography, the authorized autobiography, written with Pete Petre. So there is a ghostwriter or a writing assistant helping Schwarzenegger with his book. Of course, it's very gimmicky. It's very markety. There's a lot of. I think I showed it in my TVR video. You see, you've got those kind of things. Arnold with his famous pose, and then the back copy. It's he was born in a year of famine in a small Austrian town. He dreamed of moving to America to become a bodybuilding champion and a movie star. By the age of 21, he was living in Los Angeles and had been crowned Mr. Universe. Within 5 years, he had learned English and became the greatest bodybuilder in the world. Within 10 years, he had earned his college degree and was a millionaire from his business enterprises. Within 20 years, he was the world's biggest movie star, the husband of Maria Shriver, and the emerging Republican leader who was part of the Kennedy family. 36 years after moving to America, he was elected governor of California, the 7th largest economy in the world. Until now, he has never told his full story of his life in his own voice. So yeah, very gimmicky. It's a progression of just him becoming better and better and maybe removing a lot of the not so nice parts about his life. So yeah, what you would expect from an authorized autobiography, basically. Again, a life split into three parts. Interesting life, so different from each other. First, as a bodybuilder, that's how he made his name. It got him to America. Then part two of the book is his time as a movie star. Again, quite an achievement, to give him his due. And then finally entering into politics, governor of California, of course. And that book is written like that, it's a part memoir, part autobiography, but also a political, defending my political career, my political record. It's that kind of book, but again, big, thick book that's reflective of the subject matter. Of course, because it's an authorized biography, some of the not so nice part of his life is kind of skimmed over, not talked about much. As he started to enter political, entering into political, when he started having political ambitions, there were allegations, sexual harassment, women started coming up. Now, he, in the book, gives 2-3 lines, maybe a paragraph to the whole situation. He says it was all fake allegations, but I don't know. I don't know, because it wasn't really mentioned here too much. And then, of course, his marriage, he marries Maria Shriver, who's a scion of the famous Kennedy family, the American Kennedy family, and that gets him into political circles, etc. But then, well, I don't know. I don't want to ruin it. Maybe like a spoiler, but I don't really think it's a spoiler, because it's news for people who follow this kind of thing. Basically, and this is after his political career. When his political career is over, his acting career is pretty much over because of his health and his age, and his bodybuilding is long over, and he's a bit out of the public view. Right at the end, we hear about marriage infidelity. So he was basically having an affair with his children's nanny or something, and he never told anybody, and he kept her employed even after they had the affair. Again, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. I like to think I'm a sophisticated reader. I like reading histories. I like reading, sort of intelligent books. These celebrity books I sometimes pick up when they're on sale, and I've learned my lesson not to pick them up, because the more of them I read, the more I see this isn't really what I enjoy reading. I don't really like reading about celebrities, and I'm learning that the hard way. But I want to clear I want to clear shelf space in my library, so I'm trying to read the books that I don't need to keep here and I don't want to keep here. And just reading them has confirmed that I don't want to keep them. So that's why the last couple of months there's been a lot of celebrity biography, musical biographies, musician biographies, that kind of stuff. And again, I've given it a try. I still have a few left. I need to read. I don't want to just get rid of them. I want to read them and get rid of them. But again, this was one of them, and I just wanted to knock it off the list, and I'm happy to say that I did. Again, just to wrap up, like any man, capital M, any human, he has faults. I mean, he has good things and bad things. His life is a contradiction, and it's in the last chapter, just to read it, to see the contradictions, despite all the sort of the whole, almost 90% of the book is him just doing one good thing after the other, success after success after success, non-stop, just good things happening. But then at the end, he gets a bit more honest with himself, as you figure out, like all humans, he has his flaws. So just to read the paragraph, just to give you an idea, it says here, I always wanted to be an inspiration for people, but I never set out to be a role model in everything. How could I be when I have so many contradictions and cross-currents in my life? I'm a European who became an American leader, a Republican who loves Democrats, a businessman who makes his living as an action hero, a tremendously disciplined superachiever who hasn't always been disciplined enough, a fitness expert who loves cigars, an environmentalist who loves Hummers, a fun-loving guy with kid-like enthusiasm who is famous for terminating people. How could anybody know what to imitate? So again, you see the contradictions there. A flawed character, just like the rest of us, I guess. But again, you might like this. It is an immigrant story. It's an American dream story, definitely. But again, he said, what did he call himself? A tremendously disciplined superachiever, and that's definitely true too. Just a driven person. And as I read all these celebrity biographies and these very successful celebrities, what you learn about them is they're incredibly ruthless. They're just ruthless to achieve their dream. They pretty much do anything and hurt people who are around them to achieve it. So would I recommend this? Maybe not this. Maybe there's a biography written by somebody else. Actually, I'm reading. You'll see it in my TBR video. But again, celebrity biography is not for me. Celebrity autobiographies is especially. I can't wholeheartedly recommend it. If you're a super fan, I mean, I was a super fan. Again, being a 90s kid, most of his movies came out in the 80s, but I watched them in the early 90s when they were still quite recent, and I loved his movies. I think he compared the 1980s action movies, Sylvester Stallone. Was it Sylvester Stallone who did Rocky and Rambo? And all the others, Chuck Norris, there was others. Anyway, they all came at that time, and he compared the 80s action movies to the 50s Western. And that's pretty much true. I remember my early childhood. I think the first time I ever learned the F word was watching his movies. So a bit of nostalgia as well, I guess. That's why I picked it up. So that was that. The next couple of books, actually 3 books I read were with regards to Historathon, which is a year-long booktube event where you read books of history. It encourages you to read books of history. And the year is divided into 4 quarters, and each quarter is a period of history which you are meant to read. So quarter 1 is prehistory to 500 AD. Quarter 2 is 500 AD to 1500. Quarter 3, which is what I'm reading now, is 1500 to 1820 AD or CE. And then the last quarter, which will be October, November, December, will be 1820 to the present. And for me, again, quarter 3, we said 1500 to 1820. I had chosen books mostly to do with the Age of Exploration and also the European discovery of America. So a lot of the books I've been reading this year for Historathon has been generally about that subject matter, a lot of exploration and early colonial, early settlement. The first book I read with regards to this event was this book. It's called The Journey to the Mayflower, God's Outlaws and the Invention of Freedom by Stephen Tompkins. So in the TBR, I posted this book. I thought this would be about the Mayflower and the people who were on the Mayflower, that famous ship that left England left the Netherlands via England to go to America to start a colony in New England and Plymouth. But again, you have to be very careful with the title because it's the journey to the Mayflower, not the journey of the Mayflower, but the journey to the Mayflower. So it's really the journey of what happened before, what led these separatists, Puritan, non-conforming English men and women to immigrate to America and to found an American colony in Plymouth in Massachusetts. But this is very much what happened before, what led to it. And it turned out I didn't know it. It turned out to be a religious history, a history of Protestantism in England. It began really well interesting, the begins with the split from the Catholic Church and the rise of Protestantism in England. But then, what I learned, again, I'm in the Middle East. This is very much a Muslim part of the world. Christianity, Christian history, I'm very weak in. I never grew up in a church setting or in a Christian setting. So for me, this is all all gibberish, really. But when they established the Church of England, even within the Church of England, there started to be splits. What the separatists, the Puritan or the separatists, what they started to realize was that the Church of England was becoming just like the Church in Rome. It was becoming similar, and they had bishops, and it was appointed by the king. And the arguments they make is that anybody could open a church at any time. You don't need any sanction from the state. It gets, as the book goes on and on and on, it gets very, very technical. A lot of just religious controversy about the nature of worship, the nature of baptism, the Anabaptists, the Presbyterians, it gets pretty deep in the weeds. So again, I don't know if I can recommend this. I mean, unless you're really into your religious Protestant history, maybe you'll like this, but it's a dense read. Let's just put it that way. And again, I should have read the title better, The Journey to the Mayflower, not The Journey of the Mayflower. So I learned my lesson. But staying on the same theme, the next book I read, also for Historathon, also that same period, is by Peter Fursbrook, and it's A Man Most Devious. And the subtitle is Captain John Smith, Pocahontas, and the Founding of America. So this is basically a biography of Captain John Smith, he of Jamestown fame and Pocahontas fame. Yeah, basically his biography, but it's a sympathetic biography. And when I showed this on my August TBR video, I got a comment from my viewers that said, be warned, John Smith and what they did to Pocahontas, what they did to the natives in general, it has to be scrutinized carefully, because it's not all. It wasn't all flowers and happy days. It was quite vicious, very bloody story of America's founding, and especially about Pocahontas. Pocahontas was, I think, when John Smith and the Englishmen who arrived in Virginia, in Jamestown, or who established Jamestown. She was 14, 15. It seems she was the daughter of the chief. It seems she was, it seems she was induced to go and pretty much sleep with all the men in Jamestown, or at least the leaders, or maybe by her father. It's not very clear here. The subtitle here is very misleading. Captain John Smith is well covered, but then Pocahontas, there's not that much about Pocahontas in this book. So there is a story that she went to England. Again, she died. Pocahontas died when she was 22. So she died very young, and she was treated awfully. She was sent to England. She met the Queen. She was pretty much forced to marry one of the colonists, the richest colonist in Jamestown. But there's not much about Pocahontas. There should have been more. But again, this is a much more sympathetic look at John Smith, not a very critical one. And then the last part is the founding of America, and that's true, the founding of America and Jamestown and the settlements, etc. But a lot of this book is John Smith before he even decided to go to America, and he led a pretty exciting, swashbuckling life of adventure. He fought in the like a soldier's adventure story. He fought in the Netherlands to protect the Protestants against Spanish Catholicism, and the Spanish in Netherlands and Belgium. He fought in France in a sort of chivalric sort of end of knighthood sort of battles, local battles. He was a pirate in the Mediterranean. He went to Alexandria in Egypt. He went to Constantinople. Then he fought to protect the Christians against the Turkish Ottoman Turks, the Muslim Ottoman Turks, and he fought in Hungary and made a name for himself as a soldier in Hungary. He was captured and sold to slavery in Russia. So he's been around the whole world before he even set foot or decided to go on his American adventure. So it's a very rich life, a very rich story. And again, the story of Pocahontas, the natives putting his head on a stone, ready to cut his head off, but then Pocahontas comes and saves him and throws her body over him. That's very. It's in American lore, but it was the whole Disney storyline is not. It's not. There's no proof. The only person who said that Pocahontas did that was John Smith, and John Smith lied a lot in his journals just to puff himself up. So. Yeah, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But Disney, the writers at Disney, they have the best storytellers, the best writers. So I'm not surprised that they found the story of John Smith and the Pocahontas story exciting, because even if it's fanciful, there are parts of it that are, you can say has an interesting storyline or could be made into an interesting storyline. And I guess that's what the people in Disney are all about. But what else to say? I think there was one more thing I wanted to say. Again, there's only one known photo of John Smith, and the impression we get, even you look at the photo, but just reading you can read the biography, but then just the picture of him, you can see there he looks like a brutal, not a very likable guy, somebody who's quite strict and ferocious, not a nice guy to be around. I don't think not a nice guy for sure. But there was also the interesting part is that tough as nails exterior hides maybe a secret that John Smith kept. I'll read I'll read the passage and then you let me know. Here it says, "There was also a vulnerable side to John Smith, especially with respect to women. Like his contemporaries, Smith grew up in a world dominated by men. His 2 schools were for boys, his apprenticeship in King's Lynn was an exclusively male environment, and his time in the army kept him away from women, except perhaps prostitutes and camp followers. The Jamestown colonists for the first 16 months of settlement were all men, and Smith's time spent in New England and at sea completely excluded women. This was not unusual in his day. Yet, from what we can glean from Smith's writings, his relationship with the opposite sex was anything but normal. This has led some writers to suggest that Smith might have been homosexual, citing the evening when he claimed half-naked Powhatan maidens tormented him in a longhouse in Werowocomoco. There was an incident. There were naked native ladies, and he was uncomfortable. It becomes plausible after reading that passage. It starts to make sense if you read the book. He has a lot of female women who come and help him when he's in trouble, and the relationship doesn't feel like it's a romantic relationship. It's more like a woman sort of sympathizing with a gay man, helping him because they can tell that he has this vulnerability, that he's not quite like most other men, if that makes sense. I believe, I really don't know, I'm a bit ignorant, but usually I think gay men usually have a best friend who's a woman. Is that usually? I don't know. That might be controversial, but anyway, another just like Schwarzenegger, a flawed character, and but again, more of a sympathetic biography when we know how they treated Pocahontas as the most famous example, but just the natives in general. You have to be very careful when reading early American, colonial American or European settlement of America stories. So that's a caveat when reading these books. And then the next book is also related, very much related to the journey to the Mayflower and to A Man Most Driven about John Smith. It's also about Historathon, same period, and this is by Nathaniel Philbrick. This is Mayflower. Famous author, historian, writes a lot about America. Again, so this is the Pilgrims, or the Pilgrims decide to sail to America. This is the story of what happens when they get to Cape Cod and to Massachusetts and Plymouth colony. And then again, it's the subtitle. It's A Voyage to War. So it starts, the story starts well. The Puritans miraculously reach the coast of Massachusetts. They hunker down, they settle in, but then because they were delayed, they reached Massachusetts in winter time, in November, a very, very difficult time. They didn't have the supplies, they had no experience, and it was a especially brutal winter, so it was a struggle for survival. And who came to help them but the natives? If it wasn't for the natives, there would have been no Mayflower, no Plymouth colony. Maybe history would have been different, American history. I do have passages maybe I want to read, but this video is going long, so maybe I'll just explain quickly. So the natives help the first settlers come in, feed them, basically save them from certain death. Not that they didn't suffer death, they did, but it would have suffered even more death. The Indians could have very easily starved them to submission, but they didn't. And so the story starts well. It starts with the Europeans and the natives coming together, working together, creating a working relationship and an agreement to help each other. And you have things like Thanksgiving, where the Americans celebrate, the bounty of their country. So it starts well. The first generation of the settlers were very careful. Not just careful, they were in gratitude to the natives for their assistance in saving them. What happens with time is that the English settlers become much more confident. They start growing in number, and the Indians, or excuse me, I said the Indians, the natives, the indigenous peoples, they start to say, wait, these English men and women are here to stay, and they're taking up more land, and that's when it's the second generation after Mayflower, after the original settlers from the Mayflower, the second generation, both of the Europeans and of the indigenous peoples. They're the ones who clash, and so it goes from happy Thanksgiving, everything is so nice, to war, King Philip's War, a brutal war from both sides. And as Philbrick explains, per capita, probably the bloodiest war in American history. If you take it as a percentage, you compare World War II or the Civil War, the percentage of death as a percentage is the most in King Philip War. So this is the story not of 1776. This is the war of 1676. So a very bloody history. Again, it's there in the subtitle, A Voyage to War, really. And it's defined the American story ever since. Again, if you like American history, early American history, Philbrick, a very, very good writer, a well-known one, so you can't go wrong with this story. But again, the same caveats apply. You have to. Philbrick was a bit more fair, taking a more of the native point of view, much more probably than older books, which was probably more sympathetic to the settlers' viewpoint. but what we learn also, a big lesson that the settlers learned was instead of and what they should have learned from the first generation was um, um, instead of separating from the natives and treating them like enemies, the best thing they should have done, and the thing that made them win the war against the natives, was to co-opt Indians, to co-opt them to their side and to use them for their advantage. The best people, the people who know the terrain, who know the how to fight, where to find food, were the natives themselves. And they couldn't have done anything without co-opting some of them against their native brethren. But that's a lesson you learn a lot. If you, for example, the insurgency in a war, the insurgency in Iraq, for example, the Americans learned that the best way to fight the insurgency isn't to just kill blindly, but it was to co-opt the locals, because the locals will give you the best intelligence. So there's lessons in there. Again, from the three, probably the most fair book written. Again, if you like your American history, then definitely you'll like Mayflower. And next, a couple of fiction books. One of them I read. Another. This is a personal project I'm reading. I have books about the Caucasus, a region in Central Asia, the very extremity of Eastern Europe, somewhere between Europe and Asia. The Caucasus is a region that includes three countries: the Republic of Georgia, the Republic of Armenia, and the Republic of Azerbaijan. And they are in a very difficult geographical location. And they are bordered to the north by Russia, they're bordered to the south by Iran, and they're bordered to the west by Turkey. So quite powerful countries, and they're just lumped there in the middle. And they're also very difficult to reach because on their western and their eastern side, they're bounded by seas. On one side by the Black Sea, and on the other side by the Caspian Sea. So it's a very isolated region, and it's a very ethnically diverse region. Azerbaijan is mostly Muslim, Shia Muslim. You've got the Orthodox Christians in Georgia, and then you've got Armenian Orthodox in Armenia. And added to that is just it's a very difficult part of the world for anybody to get involved in, and that puts them in it makes for interesting reading. It's an interesting part of the world. So I have a bunch of books that I collected or I purchased when I was traveling in that region, and now I have a bunch of them, and I need to get rid of them because I have too many of them. But this time I read a fiction, a work of fiction. I've been reading the last couple of months works of nonfiction. This is fiction. This is Ali and Nino by Qurban Saeed. And as you can see there, it's a love story. I don't know how clear it is on the screen, but this was excellent. So this takes what you read in a history book, the geopolitics, all of it, the history, and puts it in a work of fiction. Now, in my TBR video, I kind of lazily just compared it to a Caucasian version of Romeo and Juliet. It's not that. It's much different. It is about a Muslim boy from Baku in Azerbaijan and a Christian girl of Georgian origin who fall in love, and basically follows their story. It is set during World War I with all the events of World War I in the background, and it's just superbly written. It's just an excellent book. I can't recommend this highly enough. You have the three biggest characters are Ali, who's the Muslim Azerbaijani. You've got Nino, who is the Christian Georgian female character, and then there's a third character who acts as the Armenian. And so you get the whole story of the Caucasus lives through those three characters. So again, just I mean, it's. I was very impressed by this. What I wanted to say was both Ali and Nino are the story of the upper classes of the region, the elites. They're very much, both Ali is from a very princely family, and Nino is from a princely Georgian family as well. So it makes for interesting reading. If I have one caveat about this book is if you read this as your first book as an introduction, you might need a bit of background because it is complex. You have, Christian and Muslim, but you have two different kinds of Christians. And then the Azerbaijanis they're a Turkish people, and so are the Turkeys in Turkey. But the Turks in Turkey are Sunni Muslim, and the Azerbaijani Turkish people are Shia Muslim, and so they were always historically closer to Iran, which is a major Shia power. So it might be a bit complex. Luckily, I've been to that part of the world, and I've been reading a lot of books previous to this one, mostly nonfiction history books, so I'm a bit more aware, but that's the only caveat I might have, that you might be, if you're completely new to the region and don't know much, it might be a lot, but I'm tempted to read a passage, but again, I think in the interest of time, I'll skip that. But if you really like this, or if that sounded, I'm not doing a good job of explaining it, but if that sounded interesting to you, you should pick this up. I know Angelina at Books Do Things to Me has been telling me, once you're done with all your Caucasus book, come and send them to me. I don't mind sending this to you. The only thing I have is I picked this up in a bookstore, in an obscure bookstore run by an old man in Baku, I believe. And I bought it, but I hadn't noticed. I don't think this copy, it's not the best copy. I don't know if this is even, I think it's like because you can see it's sort of cut here, and some of it's readable, but I think this is a pirated copy. That's the only issue, but if you don't mind that, I don't mind sending it. If I had noticed at the time, I probably wouldn't have bought it, but I think I was trying to help the older man, the gentleman who was running the bookstore, so I purchased it. But anyway, highly recommend it. And then another work of fiction I read, there is an event called Garb August where you read garbage fiction in August. The reason I didn't do it is because I don't know what constitutes garbage. How can you define what garbage is? Maybe because I haven't read enough fiction in my reading career to know what is garbage and what isn't. But the book is by Raymond Khoury, and it's called The Sanctuary. And his name has a Arabic twist. That's what attracted me and compelled me to buy this book. And a lot of the book is based. This book is based in Beirut, Lebanon. The story, the plot, is mostly in Beirut, Lebanon. So it's pretty much in the Middle East. And Raymond Khoury, I bought this book and two others which I read previously. His books they're action sequence books. The closest thing I can compare it to is like the Dan Brown sort of. There's a story in contemporary times, but it goes back. There's some evil that happened either by the Templars or by the Vatican that's basically how his stories they alternate between the past and the present, and then it becomes it's a lot of action and violence. But again, I've read now, this is the third book I've read from this author. I can recommend him if you're into that kind of stuff. But why I was reluctant to call this garbage for Garb August, because I'll read the passage and you tell me, does this qualify as garbage? It says here, Paris suited the Count. It was a huge, bustling city, the largest human settlement in Europe, and it had attracted plenty of travelers and adventurers, the boisterous as well as the discreet. His appearance there would be diluted by those of countless others. Here he could meet the other travelers, men who, like him, had been to the Orient and who may have come across the symbol of the tail-eater in their travels. It was also a city of learning and discourse, and a repository of great knowledge, with rich libraries and untold collections of manuscripts, books, and relics, including the ones that were of particular interest to him, those pilfered from the Orient during the Crusades, and those confiscated after the suppression of the Templars almost 5 centuries earlier. The ones that would house the missing piece of the puzzle that had ambushed his life all those years ago. I'll continue. It says, he arrived in Paris at a time when the great city was in transition. Radical thinkers were challenging the twin tyrannies of monarchy and church. The city was bubbling with contradiction and upheaval, with enlightenment and intrigue that Saint Germain put to good use. And then just to give, again, another passage here, it says, with every passing year he felt the winds of change blowing through the cities of men around him. Saloons and coffee houses were brimming with new ideas that were challenging ignorance, tyranny, and superstition. Religious dogma and persecution were being undermined. Rousseau, Voltaire, Diderot, and others were feverishly working while warding off the suppression of their works by the ever-present Jesuits. People were finding themselves lifted and inspired by the words of great thinkers who believed that man was essentially good and that happiness in this earthly life, achieved through social fraternity and advances in sciences and in arts, was a far more sensible and noble aspiration than hoping to reach paradise through penitence. They were beginning to dare to value their lives more than their afterlives. So, that's pretty deep. I don't think that qualifies for garbage, but I don't know. I could be mistaken. And then just maybe one more passage. I don't want you to think that this is just, again, that was more info dumping, very historical, but this is an action book. So just to give you an example of how the action goes. So it goes, he was immediately aware of a sharp pain that throbbed at the back of his head, and he felt oddly uncomfortable. He realized that his hands and feet were all tied to each other behind his back, his legs bent all the way backwards in a reverse fetal position. He was also still in his boxers. His mouth and cheek were pressed against something hard and prickly that felt like sandpaper, and his throat felt parched. Instinctively, he tried to lick his lips, but found dry soil instead. He spat the grit off and coughed. So again, adventure fiction, hard-paced, fast-paced adventure, action, but with a historical, kind of Dan Brown-ish sort of fiction. I don't know how better to describe it. Again, if you like that kind of thing, you might like it. And again, a lot of it based in the Middle East. So for me, that was enjoyable to read. And then the final book for August, again, this goes back to what I was saying about the Schwarzenegger biography. I have a lot of celebrity biographies. I pick these up sometimes when they're cheap. Or there was a period a couple of years ago where I just picked up whatever I thought was interesting as long as it was cheap. Or I would take a chance on books, and I took a chance on celebrity biographies, and now I have a bunch of them. And again, I don't need them in my library. I don't want them in my library, but I want to read them before I get rid of them. And so this was another one in that example. It's another big book of August, quite a big book. This is by Keith Richards. It's life. It's his autobiography. Again, it's his autobiography, but it's with James Fox. What to say about it? We can divide this book into 4 parts. Quarter 1 is Keith Richards experimenting with marijuana and hashish. Quarter 2 is when he graduates to acid and LSD. Quarter 3 is when he gets into heroin. And then I think you can mix LSD and heroin, and it's called a speedball or something like that. He was also a prolific proponent and experimenter of those mixtures. And then quarter 4 is the cocaine era, later in life, when he calms down a little bit. So that's basically the story of his life. And there's not much more else to say. That's pretty much it. There's not really much more I can say. Again, similar, a lot of drugs. His first wife for a long time, also a drug user. They had a child. That child died in his cot. Now, did he die of natural causes? Did the baby die of natural causes? Or was he abused because he was living with 2 very prolific users of drugs, especially heroin, I think. It's questionable. But really, up until the end, I mean, he said he quit drugs in the 90s, but he had an accident later in life, towards the end of the book, where he fell his head on a tree and he had a brain concussion, and it needed surgery. And the doctors told him, you need to stop, because he thought he just had a headache. So he was taking aspirin, but aspirin thins the blood, and that caused the bleeding in the brain to increase. The doctors told him to stop the aspirin. You have to do a surgery to fix the issue. Of course, the doctor tells him you need to stop on the bumps being bumps of cocaine that he occasionally takes from time to time, because that also thins your blood. So really a warrior to the end. But there was one passage, I hope I marked it. Yes, I think I found it. Just to give you an example of... here, let's just read it so you get an understanding of the level of drug taking. It says, "It's not only to the high quality of the drugs I had that I attribute my survival. I was very meticulous about how much I took. I'd never put more in to get a little higher. That's where most people fuck up on drugs. It's the greed involved that never really affected me. People think once you've got this high, if they take some more, they're going to get a little higher. There's no such thing, especially with cocaine. One line of good coke and you should be popped all night. But no, within 10 minutes, they're going to take another one and another one. That's crazy, because you're not going to get any higher. Maybe that's a measure of control, and maybe I'm rare in that respect. Maybe there I have an advantage." So basically the message there is, kids, you can do drugs, just do it in moderation. I mean, that pretty much sums up Keith Richards. But if I had to give say something positive, again, it's written in the first person. It's a very memoir, autobiographical, written in the first person. And it must have been the co-author or the ghostwriter, who is James Fox. It seems Keith Richards was speaking to him and he was recording, because it has that very Cockney style to it. If it has one advantage, it's that the way the way they use words in a very English way. That was a good part of this book. But the rest of it is is a journey down drugs, pretty much, to make it to condense it. Again, if you're a fan, you might enjoy it. There's a lot of he doesn't dwell too much on it, because he doesn't want I think the friendship, but also the rivalry with Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger is there, but not too much there, but it's unavoidable. And anyway, if you're into your Rolling Stones, maybe you'll like it. But Rolling Stones is way before my generation. So okay, this video's gone again, horrendously long. I'm gonna post my TBR as well, so I'll probably get 2 videos today. Apologize for the delay in making my August wrap up and my September TBR. It's just been it's been hectic again with life outside of books. But hopefully the visitors are gone and I can get back into a more normal routine. But until then, BookTube, I'll wish you a happy September reading, and I'll say goodbye. Salute, BookTube.